Hello, my name's Nicola Spence. I'm Defra's Chief Plant Health Officer, and today I'm going to be talking about a policy perspective of plant health in the UK. So to put my role in context in the Defra Plant Health Service, I sit at the heart of three areas of work. That's policy, operations, and evidence and analysis. And if you look at other organisations that are helping to deliver this, for the border inspections in England, we've got APHA, the Animal and Plant Health Agency, and Forestry Commission. Inland surveillance and enforcement is also done by APHA and the Forestry Commission. In Defra, we have risk and evidence teams that work on pest risk analysis, statistics and economics. And then we also work with forest research, ferroscience, and Q on various plant and tree health elements. So together we make the Defra Plant Health Service. Now, plant health is devolved in the UK, so there are equivalent services in Welsh Government, Scottish Government, and in Northern Ireland. So why is it so important that we work on plant health? Well, when you look at the value that forests, woodlands, and trees provide to society, it's enormous. This graph shows the elements that we have been able to monetize, that is, put a monetary value on. Now, we're more confident about some areas than others, but overall, we think the asset values of trees and in forests and woodlands is around £175 billion. And the annual value that forests, woodlands and trees provide is just under 5 billion. Now, when you add that to the value of crops and horticulture, it's around £9 billion of economic value every year. And there's also the environmental and social value, the well-being, the health and well-being aspects of plants, trees and woodlands. Now, these are under threat. And we spend a lot of our time in Defra looking at the risk analysis and pests and diseases that are on the horizon. So at the moment, there are over 1,100 plant pests and diseases on the UK Plant Health Risk Register. Around about 30% of these are forestry pests. And if you look at the graphs here, predominantly we've got insects as the main source of pest risk, and then a lot of fungi, viruses, and so on. But many of these are much lower risks. So this is shown by the green segment of the pie chart. Many of our risks are much lower. But of course, the ones that are high risk are the ones that we prioritize for action. And that might be doing a pest risk analysis, looking at how we might manage the pests with industry, whether there are research needs or whether we need to regulate the pest. This tool helps us prioritize this very large number of risks so that we can take effective action. And of course, dealing with the threats before they arrive is the most cost-effective way, because we know that the costs of disease outbreaks are enormous. So, for example, we had an outbreak of Asian longhorn beetle in Kent in 2015, and we estimate that it cost around 2 million to actually eradicate this pest, and it took around about 5 years. In the US, the numbers are even more eye-watering. So obviously, taking swift action and preventing the pest from arising is the best and most effective way. But of course, some diseases have arrived and we really couldn't have prevented them. So for example, ash dieback. And it's been estimated that that will cost around 15 billion over the next 100 years. And with Phytophthoramorum, we know that this is now established in parts of England, Scotland and Wales, and indeed Northern Ireland. And the annual cost is very significant. So how can we reduce the risk of these threats? Well, this slide shows 3 future threats that are not present in the UK. Xylella, many of you will have heard of. That can affect several broadleaf tree species, and it's been found in France, Spain, Italy, and Portugal, causing tens of millions of pounds of damage, particularly to olive trees in Italy. The emerald ash borer, an exotic beetle of ash. It's native to China and it's very widespread in North America and now present in the Ukraine. It's thought to have spread there from Russia. And thirdly, plain wilt, a serious threat to plane trees, also known as canker wilt of plane. And that is spreading throughout northern France. So these are just 3 examples of pests that we're really concerned about. And we have very rigorous controls to try and keep them out. And then, of course, there are some pests and diseases that unfortunately have arrived in the UK, and we're dealing with them as outbreaks. So, for example, Ips typographus, the European spruce bark beetle, which was found in Kent in 2018. This is currently under eradication, and we're hopeful that we will be able to eradicate this pest. In 2019, we had several outbreaks of sweet chestnut blight in the south of England. We are attempting to eradicate this, but in some sites it is somewhat established, and particularly the trees are in an amenity situation, making it difficult to actually remove the infected trees. But we have eradicated it from a number of sites. And then oak processory moth, which is present in West London. And in 2018, there was an incursion of several outbreaks of this caused by import of trees from Europe that were infected with the pest. They were not appropriately controlled in the country of origin. And last year, we spent a lot of time and effort tracing all of these trees and destroying them. This year, thankfully, we've only had 5 findings compared with more than 75 last year. And then finally, there are a portfolio of endemic diseases which are now established in the UK, and there's really no prospect of eradication. Phytophthoramorum is one of these, which has spread throughout the western side of the UK and caused a lot of damage, particularly in trees such as European larch. Acute oak decline has been present in the UK for probably 30 years, but we've been monitoring it and trying to establish, where is it spreading, and trying to understand the complex of diseases and pests that are contributing to this decline. And then ash dieback, where there was a mass incursion of spores on the east side of the UK in around about 2012, and it has spread throughout the UK. Although we do believe that ash dieback's probably been present in the UK since at least 2004. So how do we tackle these pests and diseases? Well, it's a combination of border inspections, and we have many sites throughout the UK, the Animal and Plant Health Agency operating in England and Wales, and in Scotland, SASA. They do thousands of inspections. They intercept things at the border. They follow up inland and notify the Plant Health Service of any harmful organism. And swift action is taken to destroy any infected material. We also follow up with nursery inspections, and we've done over 5,000 inspections at nurseries in the last year. Particularly important are things like trees, where they're imported directly onto a nursery. We have statutory notification on most tree species so that we know that they've been imported. We can trace them to a nursery and follow up and inspect them. But of course, large mature trees are very difficult to inspect. And then we also do surveillance in the wider environment, and particularly the Forestry Commission do helicopter flights all over the UK every year. They take aerial photographs of tree canopies, and then we can send teams on the ground to follow up with anything that looks suspicious. So we do sort of general surveys and then more specific ones for certain pests and diseases, as well as doing pathogen surveys for things such as Xylella. So all of these elements contribute to countering the threat of biosecurity. And the way we describe it is a biosecurity continuum. That means across the UK, we're doing work pre-border, at the border, and in country to try and detect and mitigate pests and diseases. And we operate in the UK as a coordinated system of plant health services. The current legislation that operates for plant health is EU legislation. Obviously, during our time in the EU, decisions are taken and standards are set, and then we implement them into legislation in the 4 devolved territories. So that means we have regulations about plants that are high risk that move within the EU. They require a plant passport, and plants from outside the EU require a phytosanitary certificate. We also have a register of operators for all those who produce and move and sell plants. This legislation was updated in December 2019, and the UK also has a number of other set of legislative regulations, such as protected zones. We have emergency legislation around some diseases and statutory notification. All of this sits under the umbrella of the IPPC, which is the International Plant Protection Convention. This is the body that sets standards globally and operate under WTO rules. But of course, all this is changing. And from January 2021, we will have post-transition arrangements. One other set of regulations that we brought in very recently are civil sanctions. So last week, we introduced new legislation to utilize civil sanctions so that we can enforce people that deliberately or unknowingly breach our legislation. So this was the final part of our plant health regulations that were brought in last year. We haven't yet implemented those, and we're allowing a bit of time at the moment to allow Defra and Welsh Government to consider in which ways that we want to actually implement them. So when we get to January next year, we will have new requirements for material from the EU. And from January, all plants for planting, including those from the EU, will need a phytosanitary certificate to enter the UK. They will also need to be pre-notified, and they will be inspected at an improved place of destination. There will in time be border control posts, but from January, we will be using point of destination inspections, and premises will need to be approved by AFA inspectors. We'll be phasing in these physical inspections between January and July next year to give industry time to adapt. So what are the other ways in which we can work together to improve biosecurity? Well, one initiative is the Plant Healthy Initiative, which is an independent plant health management standard that's been developed by the UK Plant Health Alliance. This is a cross-sectoral group of organisations, including Horticultural Trades Association, Landscape Institute, RHS, and Grown in Britain. And the idea is to be able to improve biosecure supply chains across horticulture and forestry. So this was launched last year, and a number of businesses have already been audited. There have been various pilot projects to get businesses up to speed, and we're hoping that this will be rolled out more extensively in the next few years. We've also been working together on raising awareness, and as you know, this year is International Year of Plant Health. So we've been working across the UK and internationally to raise awareness. Of course, the global pandemic has meant that we haven't been able to have physical events and exhibitions and garden meetings and so on. But we have had a lot of social media campaigns on this. And 2 weeks ago, it was National Plant Health Week, and we launched this children's activity book called Izzy the Inspector. It was actually developed by plant health colleagues and illustrated by a plant health inspector. It's available to download. It's been translated into Welsh, and we do hope that you'll have a look at it. The web address of where you can find it is on the slide. We've also got the Keep It Clean initiative that forestry colleagues have been promoting, and the Don't Risk It campaign to try and stop passengers bringing material back into the UK. So finally, what does the future look like for plant health? Well, we're working on a number of initiatives. One is a Future Flora initiative with the Landscape Institute and the Botanic Gardens at St Andrews. And that's looking at new ways to select, specify, and procure plants for landscapes. We're also building on our citizen science work, such as Observatory, to engage a much wider spectrum of people who are all going to work together to protect nature. We're working on a newly refreshed GB plant health biosecurity strategy that we will launch next year. And of course, looking towards the end of this year when we leave the EU and begin our own bespoke imports and exports regime for plants. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Good morning, Borida. Can I start by thanking the Tubby Project and our National Botanic Gardens for arranging this conference and for the opportunity to speak to you all today. My apologies, I can't do this in person because of COVID-19, but I am grateful that technology has found a way. In Wales, plant health is the responsibility of Welsh Government, but as Nicola has so eloquently said, we do this in a joined-up way with the other UK administrations. More on this later, and I will also cover some of the particular plant health issues facing Wales and some of the steps we are taking to address them. So a little about me. I am Deputy Head of Land, Nature and Forestry Division in Welsh Government, and I'm also the Chief Plant Health Officer for Wales. I have worked primarily in the economic, environmental and agriculture sectors in Welsh Government and have experience of responses to emergencies. I thought I would start with a picture many of you will identify with. It shows the kind of natural landscape in Wales we are all working to protect. Many important sectors of the economy depend on these rural areas, including horticulture, farming, forestry, tourism and heritage. It is therefore important we continue to develop a thriving natural environment for plants and trees in Wales, keeping them healthy and being plant-wise about invasive non-native species. For our plant health policies, there is a golden thread of a unique legislative framework that requires us to act in a globally responsible way and supports the Welsh language. These requirements are incumbent on all the public sector bodies in Wales. The Welsh Language Act means that Welsh should be treated no less favourably than the English language in Wales. The Future Generation Act requires public bodies in Wales to think about the long-term impact of their decisions, to work better with people, communities and each other, and to prevent persistent problems such as poverty, health inequalities and climate change. The Environment Act centres on the need to adopt a new, more integrated approach to managing our natural resources in order to achieve long-term sustainability. A new biodiversity duty is included in the Act to help reverse the decline and secure the long-term resilience of biodiversity in Wales. We have also declared biodiversity and climate change emergencies in Wales. In my view, healthy plants and trees offer a particularly important way of delivering on this legislative framework and helping to tackle both biodiversity loss and climate change. In terms of ways of working, as plant pests and diseases don't respect borders, we work to protect plants and trees in Wales through a partnership approach. Our partners are the other UK and devolved administrations, Crown dependencies, the Animal and Plant Health Agency and the Forestry Commission. Combined, this group forms the UK Plant Health Service. We have agreed a plant biosecurity strategy for Great Britain, and the Plant Health Service collaborate with industry, landowners, and the general public in its delivery. The strategy's aim is to reduce the risks of introducing new pests, mitigating the impact of newly established pests, and in the longer term, making the economy and environment more resilient to the threats from plant pests and diseases. Under the UK Plant Health Service, there are key communication structures like the Chief Plant Health Officer meetings, the UK Plant Health Risk Group and its subgroup meetings. At a UK level, our main communication with stakeholders through the UK Plant Health Advisory Forum, which includes horticulture interests. At a Wales level, I chair the Wales Tree and Plant Health Steering Group. The group is comprised of representatives from the public, private and voluntary sectors. It is also fed by two operational level groups, one dealing with Phytophthoramorum, and more on that later, and the other Calara dieback of ash, as two of the most significant diseases affecting plant health in Wales. The purpose of the group is to provide advice and support with regard to policy development, outbreak management, building resilience against pests and diseases, and linking with national and international groups. The Animal and Plant Health Agency implements and enforces plant health policy in Wales on behalf of the Welsh Government under a Concordat agreement. The Animal and Plant Health Agency inspections include points of entry, surveys of the wider environment, monitoring on farms, nurseries, garden centres, retailers and other premises where plants are grown, stored or traded. Natural Resources Wales exercise many of the Welsh Minister's tree health statutory functions in Wales, including authorising inspections and the regular surveillance for quarantined organisms and key pests and diseases. In terms of pests and diseases in Wales, then Phytophthoramorum is the biggest problem. Phytophthoramorum is a fungus-like pathogen which kills a wide range of trees and particularly larch. This picture of the Avon Valley gives you a feel for the kind of landscape-scale damage it can cause. Over 900 hectares of larch have been felled in the Avon Valley, and the outbreak of Phytophthoramorum across Wales has been the largest since the Dutch elm epidemic in the 1970s. Over 12,000 hectares of larch has been infected in Wales so far. This pie diagram is just to emphasise the scale of the disease on larch. It shows nearly 75% of larch in Wales is infected with Phytophthoramorum or has been already felled to avoid the disease. And finally, a distribution map of Phytophthoramorum in Wales. You will see it is now widespread. The pattern of distribution in Wales follows the early modelling that was done on the disease, which identified Wales as one of the highest risk areas for Phytophthoramorum in the UK. The oak processory moth is our most recent plant health outbreak in Wales and worth a mention. We had 3 outbreak sites in Wales which were eradicated, but oak processory moth is a particular concern as it produces a toxin which can cause asthma attacks, vomiting, eye and throat irritation. We have therefore put stricter measures in place, only allowing imports of certain oak trees from oak processory moth-free countries and those from designated pest-free areas. There will also be ongoing surveillance at the 3 sites and wider monitoring in Wales. This slide gives a flavour of some of the challenges we are facing now and into the future on plant health. When dealing with plant health, the old adage, known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns is very apt. It is very difficult to plan for where outbreaks will occur and to understand the biology of an outbreak if it is a new pest or disease to the country. However, we take the risks very seriously, and I commend the important work the UK Risk Group do in assessing pest and disease risks and prioritising contingency planning. This process has informed the ongoing Xylella contingency planning work, as it is considered an extremely high risk to the UK. There are also wider health, economic and environmental factors. COVID and the restrictions it places on the plant health work, Brexit and the uncertainty around trading arrangements, border arrangements and our future trading partners, and of course government priorities. Climate change and the effect it will have on risk profiles for certain pests and diseases. I also think invasive and non-native species are worth a mention here too, as a close cousin of plant health, and can be contributory factors, as in the case of Rhododendron ponticum, which acts as a reservoir for Phytophthoramorum. These are just a flavour of the risks we are trying to navigate our way through in what is an increasingly uncertain world. In order to mitigate against potential pests and diseases, we are working with partners on a number of key initiatives. It is the International Year of Plant Health, and we've been working through the Plant Health Service to take forward a curtailed programme of actions due to COVID-19. The Plant Health Week ran from the 21st to the 27th of September and raised awareness of plant health threats and the action people can take to keep our plants healthy. The campaign was digitally led, with exciting and informative content being posted by various partners of the UK Plant Health Service. I'm pleased to say it will now be extending into 2021, and key messages are look after your plants, buy responsibly, don't risk it, clean your boots, adopt good biosecurity, and involve AFA forest research, and use the plant portal and upload to Tree Alert. And here is the International Year of Plant Health website. Please have a look at the website and point customers to it. The focus is on looking after and celebrating plants and buying responsibly. The other initiative I would flag is our ongoing work with parks and public gardens who have agreed to be an early warning system for plants, pests and diseases. They will have twice yearly visits from the Animal and Plant Health Agency, and the network also provides us with an opportunity to develop a communication hub for awareness raising on key biosecurity messages, like the simple ones on the slide. Although progress has been slow due to COVID-19, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the 22 parks and public gardens who have agreed to take part in this exciting project. The National Trust, the National Botanic Gardens and Bute Park in Cardiff are just a few of the sites, and I'm pleased this network has a wide range of plants and trees and a heavy footfall of visitors. As an example of the kind of communication we can do through this network, we worked recently with Bute Park to put in place a bilingual information bug trail during the Plant Health Week. This could be adapted for other organisations and is an excellent way to engage with children. At the end of the bug hunt, there is a certificate to take a selfie with, and there's also a bilingual activity book available online. Looking to the future, we need to increase our resilience and maintain and build our expertise and capacity to investigate, communicate, manage and control plant disease outbreaks. The Plant Health Service is going to refresh the plant biosecurity strategy, and we will be looking for your input to that. We need to increase communications and awareness raising. We included a plant health exhibition at the Cardiff Royal Horticultural Society Flower Show in April 2019. This was very well received, and our Sentinel sites give us an opportunity to build on this. And finally, please talk to your local plant health inspector. They are interested in your views on issues in the sector. Your feedback is always welcome and helps us understand the issues, and we can feed those into policy development. Link in wherever you can to any of the organisations I have identified, whichever route you are most familiar with, and provide your views. I just finished by saying thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to the Q&A later.
Thank you, Nicola and Martin. That was very informative on such an important area. So we're just, bear with us, everybody. We'll just give us a couple of minutes to get everybody back up, and then we can start our question and answers. You'll see down at the bottom end of the screen, there's an ask the question area. So please do ask questions in there. We've got Nicola coming on audio, and Martin and David Skidmore have joined us on screen. So we'll start off, while we're getting Nicola on, can we start off with you, Martin, a question that's come in, and I know you've alluded to it, but if you could tell us, how can growers and nurseries feed their thoughts and concerns into Welsh Government as the legislators and be sure that they are being heard?
Yes, thank you very much for that. I mean, as I kind of alluded to, there's lots of different groups and avenues that people can feed into. We've obviously got the UK level groups. We've got this Wales Tree Health and Plant Health Steering Group. There's also various sector interests that you can feed into. Any of the AFA inspectors will always be welcome to hear your views. And obviously through the likes of Tuvi, the Tuvi project, and the various groups on the horticulture side. Again, if you feed comments in through there, and if they're plant health issues, those will be fed into my team in Welsh Government.
Thank you, Martin. And Nicola, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
I can. That's come through perfectly. Thank you. A question for yourself. Who carries out the assessments that decide whether or not a pest or pathogen is listed on the plant health risk register?
So we have a team of pest risk analysts that sit in Defra, and also in the devolved administrations. There's also expertise, and they meet monthly as the UK Plant Health Risk Group. So a pest might be proposed for a risk register entry if, for example, it's a new and emerging pest that's been intercepted or has been found in another part of the world. It's then put on the agenda, and typically the risk group will talk about, up to sort of 10 different pests each month. So there'll be an expert discussion, and any evidence and research will be taken into account. And then there will be a recommendation that perhaps that pest, is high risk. It needs some kind of regulatory control, or possibly there might be a proposal that it should be managed by industry, or the awareness raising should happen. So there is a proposal that then comes to me as a Chief Plant Health Officer. We will discuss that with the Chief Plant Health Officers in the devolved administrations, and ultimately that goes to ministers for a decision. So it's quite an intense process, but it's very regular. I have a monthly biosecurity meeting with ministers in Defra, and then we'll make a decision. They will make a decision about whether we're going to regulate that pest or indeed deregulate that pest.
Super, thank you. That's very helpful. And I should have said, we also have Kelvin Hughes from AFA who's joined us. So welcome, Kelvin, and thank you for joining us. Another question has come through from a grower. Our understanding from our AFA inspector is that peach won't be used for imports from the EU, PEACH. It would be helpful to have an update on what the route is likely to be.
Yeah, hello there, and hopefully you can hear me now.
We can. Thank you, Kelvin.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much. Yes, so the way that imports from third countries are dealt with is through a combination of various different systems, including the peach system referred to. This is a border customs system which is linked in with the HMI. Historically, this has been used, and we're looking to move away from that system as we leave the European Union to upgrade to a newer, more responsive system, which will be easier for clients and ourselves to use, and that's called the IPATH system. That we are hoping to be operational towards the end of this year or the very start of next year. Until that is operational, the same systems will apply now as for third country, rest of the world imports into the UK, which require phytosanitary checks upon them. So for the time being, the peach system will be required to be used, but we're looking to switch to a different system in the new year that will not use that interface. There'll be more communications coming out quite soon regarding the IPATH system, and there is some information on that and other links regarding imports and export control once we leave, or in connection with leaving the European Union, which is available via the UK Plant Health Portal.
Thank you, Kelvin. Back to Martin and others. What research is going into plant health in Wales and perhaps nationally, and how will it continue to be funded?
I mean, shall I kick this one off? Yes. Yeah, just to say that research is managed in England and Wales on an England and Wales basis. There's a one pot of money, if you like, that's available. There's a group that kind of manages that and meets and discusses priorities for England and Wales. and then sets the agenda for that moving forward. On the forestry side, then the forest research budget is now with Welsh Government to manage. So they put together the kind of priorities with the other administrations and run that system from Wales. I don't know if Nicola or anybody else wants to add to that.
Yes, thanks, Martin. That's correct. And obviously, Welsh universities are able to access Research Council funding. So we have an initiative called Action Oak, which is a research partnership across various organisations in the UK. For example, Bangor University has been very successful in winning funds to study acute oak decline as part of a consortium across the UK. So also there's a project called Bridget, which is about tackling Xylella, and the National Museum of Wales is involved in that. There's expertise there on the vectors of Xylella. So it's really positive that the UK science base draws on research, really from the whole of the UK, including Wales.
Great, thank you for the Welsh references. That's super. The Nicola, there's a period after EU exit when approved places of distribution and civil sanctions are not fully implemented. During this period, how will cross-border biosecurity be maintained? Well,
we will be obviously operating all the main kind of legislative elements in terms of high-risk plants for planting, pre-notifications, phytosanitary certificates. The new areas that I alluded to, they will become operational during the year, but we just think that the industry needs a bit more time to adapt to those. I don't know if Calvin wants to comment more on that.
I think the main thing to say is that the high-risk plants, the Xylella hosts and the plants for planting will be checked. There'll be document checks, physical checks on January. We're then looking to move towards, in the April, do more checks which are to do with the produce that's coming into the UK and some of the other low-risk commodities, with the idea of moving to full checks on everything that's under our legislation from July. The other two aspects, of course, is that any material that is moving here that is linked up to the plant passporting scheme, there will be still associated checks, which is done on that, phytosanitary checks is normal. And then also we have general inspections that we perform, which are non-targeted type of inspections as well. So it's just a couple of other ways which biosecurity will not only continue but also be enhanced going forward from January the 1st.
I mean, I just add to that to say that what people must remember is the regulatory framework will not change on day one. We'll be rolling over the whole legislative regime from the EU and the UK regime, and the risk profile will not change on day one. So there's no greater threat, if you like. That might come down the line, but obviously the biosecurity that will be put in place will manage that.
Excellent. Thank you, all three. Another question for Nicola. Sorry, lost my way a little bit. Is the expectation that phytos will be required for import-export to Northern Ireland from Wales ongoing if they are remaining one unit with the Republic of Ireland for plant health?
Yes, well, that's a sort of very good question. And at the moment, as we understand it, Northern Ireland will remain in the single market with the EU. So that will avoid any hard border on the island of Ireland. So that has challenges and consequences from a biosecurity point of view. Because as the person asking the question quite rightly says, movements into Northern Ireland effectively become the same as movements into the EU. So at the moment, it looks as if that we will have to issue phytosanitary certificates with high-risk plants that are travelling into Northern Ireland. And equally, in the other direction, there are challenges around EU goods that will be able to move freely into Northern Ireland, and the risk that they might end up in GB, where there is a high risk. So, we have the Northern Ireland Protocol. There are still ongoing discussions and negotiations going on about this. And we'll be able to sort of publish more information about this in the next few weeks. But certainly it is a big challenge for trade at the moment. I don't know if Kelvin can say any more about that.
Yeah, it's just the only other element to add to this is that we recognise that there's going to be a capacity issue with having to issue more phytosanitary certificates and check more phytosanitary certificates. So alongside that, I've already mentioned about adapting and creating new IT platforms. But the other things also is that many of the people on the call are probably aware that we've recruited, or in the process of recruiting, another 150 new inspectors. So that will take us at the start of January to sort of close to 350, 400 inspectors or so to deal with those. And those inspectors will be trained to be generic inspectors. So we will have an adaptable footprint of staff that can be involved with both flex to deal with import and export issues which may crop up, as well as any inland issues that may emerge to do with biosecurity. We've still got, we've got a lot of very well established inspectors, those people who do have contact with them. You'll be aware that we have many inspectors with 10, 15 years plus of knowledge in working in plant health. So that's just another thing associated with issuing the certificates.
That's great. Thank you. Martin, one for you. How do you find out about legislation on plant health in Wales and the timetables of when it comes into effect?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the legislation that we implement in Wales and the rest of the UK is driven by the EU. And obviously, once we leave the EU, we can decide, what we want to implement on our own. So at the moment, we're still going through the process of implementing EU legislation. What we do, obviously, if a directive comes out and needs to be implemented, we discuss it at the UK level through the various groups. If legislative provisions are required, we then consult with the public on the proposals. At that point, we set out, what's required, ask for their views on them, tell them the timetable to its introduction, so on and so forth. That the comments are then brought back to the centre. We discuss how we want to implement the legislation then and make the legislation through whichever legislative process. So there could be a piece of UK legislation, or it could be a piece of unitary Welsh legislation, or England only, or Scotland only. Whichever process we decide then to implement the provisions. But the public are engaged in that process and given the opportunity to comment and understand what changes will be required.
Thank you. And I think this might be the final one. Growers and nurseries are the main contact points for customers buying plants. What messages should they be communicating to customers, and how should they be communicating? Who would like to go first? Nicola, would you like to?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, obviously, we're keen that we have a thriving horticulture and nursery sector, and I think we've seen, particularly during COVID, that the demand for plants and for people to garden has increased dramatically. So we would love to work with nurseries and growers to promote good buying practice. You know, a reputable nursery will know exactly where their plants are from. They will be sourcing them from sort of safe sources, and they'll be able to sell those plants to the public with confidence that they're healthy, they're good quality, and there aren't any biosecurity issues. So I mentioned the plant healthy scheme earlier on, and I think this is an important scheme for the future, so that you know, a nursery is accredited as you know, a plant healthy nursery. They can use that to communicate that to their customers through sort of information, you know, possibly labeling plants and so forth in the future. And, you know, customers can buy with confidence, knowing that the plants are biosecure. I think 4 nurseries have now been accredited as part of that scheme. But, you know, we would love to see this being adopted by all nurseries in the future as a standard of good biosecurity.
Thank you. Thank you. Martin, Kelvin, anything else to add?
I mean, I've just
got a couple of...
Go on,
Martin, you first.
No, sorry, you carry on.
Just a couple of others. After you, Martin, please.
No, you carry on. Okay,
I was just going to say, I mean, the Plant Health and Seeds Inspectorate is to promote more our activities as well. We've done quite a lot of engagement in Wales through various kind of national shows, the Royal Welsh and RHS, Cardiff, and various other things as well. But we've also been involved with some grower groups as well that are actually giving talks and so on. And the one thing we'll do is it's all about working in partnership, is just for nurseries, just remind people there's quite a lot of material which is available on the Plant Health portal that can be downloaded, posters that could be put up in and around the nursery, and raise awareness also about the Tree Alert app, so that, you know, that we can get on top of pests and diseases quickly by being notified about them through citizen science. So there were just a couple of other aspects of how nurseries can really help us interface more with the public, which has been a key component of the International Plant Year.
Thank you, Kelvin. Martin?
All I'd add to that is, you know, I'd like to see people buying more locally, have a better understanding of the kind of plants they're buying and how suitable their gardens or whatever are for those. Understand the pest risks associated with what they're buying, and you know, to flag the problems that might occur with buying things online, you know, where you don't know the provenance of them, you don't understand exactly what you're getting in that package and what you're putting into your garden. So just being more aware, I think, and promoting, you know, local kind of local plants for local use.
Important. Thank you, Martin. And we do have a session on the Plant Healthy Scheme on Monday at 9:30 for those of you who want to tune in for that, and all sessions are available to watch afterwards as well. So I think that's all the questions come through. Thank you very much to our panel, Nicola, Martin and Kelvin. That was an excellent session. Thank you to the audience for the questions that have come through. We've been delighted to have you all join us today on the Plant Health Conference, and really, really thrilled to have such an important panel of guests. So thank you again to our guests, Nicola, Martin and Kelvin. That's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And we'll draw the session to a close.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.